Hey everybody, and welcome to our webinar. This is Dan and Eamon. Do you want to just mute that, Eamon? Sorry, we're just getting started. We're really excited this morning to bring to you a bunch of things that we've been working on for the last few months. We might just monitor the Q&A just for a few minutes just to make sure the audio is coming through fine. We've had a bit of a lockdown here in Melbourne, so we've had to put together our studio again pretty quickly, so it might be a bit rough around the edges, but hopefully things are going to work okay.
Got feedback there that the audio is good, so thanks for that, fellas.
Excellent.
Yeah, look, just a quick note. Rather than using the chat window, if you can use the Q&A button, it's for asking questions. It's a bit easier on our side. So
Excellent. Should we kick it off?
let's do it.
Alrighty. Hey guys, so we're really excited to do a bunch of announcements. We've kind of given it out, some of the announcements out of the bag straight away. We'll go through some more, but yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a taste of what we're in for today. It's all about cameras. It's all about quality. It's all about what we're trying to do as far as driving the quality of PTZ cameras in general up, but also the tools that you have within that for working within your next production.
Yeah, these are really big tools, and obviously, like always, we'll give them away for free. So we should jump into the presentation, eh?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we've been teasing for the last week, this is our biggest update ever for cameras, and it covers all of our production PTZ cameras, plus our software, the cam control software. So you see there's quite a family of products we've been working on over the last few years, and the PTZs really have been a great success for NDI in general, for making productions more flexible, and also for BirdDog as well. So let's get into it. The first thing we wanted to talk about is P200. That's really our flagship camera. It's something that the very first PTZ that we shipped, and it's really something that struck a chord for its value, for what it can do, the image quality being a full Sony sensor with 30 times digital zoom. It's really been a great quality camera that people have really appreciated working with. As you've just seen with that announcement, we're adding some awesome new tools. So the first thing of this is the color matrix. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this as to what it means and what it allows you to do. I guess to back up a little bit from my perspective, I worked for Avid for 10 years. So Avid is a post-production manufacturer. They make editing software for films and TV shows. And there's a thing called selective color correction. And really, color matrix is like that. So you'll see here on the view, you've got a color wheel, and that's all the colors of the rainbow, basically. You've got them separated into red, green, and blue, and cyan, yellow, and magenta. And then you've got the areas where they blur into each other, which creates all of the colors of the rainbow. What we're able to do with this now is select that red area, for example, and change where that goes. So for example, you might want to make it a little bit more orange, or you might want to make it a little bit more purple. And you're able to really tweak in those things. And with video especially, it's been a challenge in the past for cameras, right up to $30,000 cameras, to get tricky colors like red and blues and some primary colors, to get them balanced right to make them look really natural.
Yeah. These are massive tools, and yeah, we'll be giving them away for free. So I keep saying free, so that's what we like to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep making our products better.
But yeah, so I think the main thing with this is it really will give a proper lifelike image to your production. So whether this the P200 is your primary camera or whether it's a secondary camera, to be able to really dial in all of the colors perfectly means that you can match it much better with other cameras, and really more importantly, match it more to be true to life. So color matrix is a massive update there. The next thing we've got within this is our gamma control. Now, gamma is really about the relationship between highlights and shadows, or dark and light, and where that cross point happens. So how much bias you have between the shadows and how much bias you have between the highlights. This is really important if you've got some challenging situations for shooting, and this year has been challenging for a whole bunch of reasons, as everyone knows. But one of those things is there's people that are getting into video production for the very first time, and when I say that, I don't mean that they don't necessarily know how to use a camera, but their facilities maybe aren't built around using cameras. So you might have a house of worship or an education facility or a corporate meeting room, which is designed for people to be sitting in and to be working. And maybe it's not set up with the background to be lit well and the lectern where someone's talking at to be comfortable to work with video. So what we can do now with all our tools that we've got in P200 is add in a whole bunch of extra control around your exposure and your highlights. So gamma is the first step of that, and having 72 levels of gamma control really allows you to make it look more moody if you want to get a lower gamma curve, or you can really bring up the highlights as well if you've got some challenging environments. So really from that point of view, it's a pretty exciting set of tools to have that color matrix to really get things dialed in on the color side of things, and then you've got the gamma control to get the exposure really dialed in. Not to be happy with that, we've tasked our engineers with a bunch more things in here, and you can see this is a fairly decent list of new updates. It's a really substantial update for the P200s.
Yeah, often some of the biggest features are the ones that aren't the sexy highlights, but the codec engine is a massive achievement from the engineering team.
Yes, you're jumping a few ahead, but
Oh,
that's okay.
Okay, no.
So what we've got here with the enhancement and detail, so the video enhancement tools go further than just the gamma control. We actually have a lot of highlight compensation and brightness compensation, and that goes a step beyond what you'd normally see with a PTZ camera, where you'd have a thing called high dynamic range, but high sensitivity range and things. What this does is actually take that image and really bring things up. So you'll see, again, challenging situations where you might have half mixed light between a shadowed area and then true sunlight. With our enhancements, you can really bring them in a lot better. So it effectively gives you significantly more dynamic range that you can see within the camera. Cool thing with this though, this is a firmware update. This isn't a camera update. So any camera that you've got there, P200, you can drop on this new firmware and away you go. And we've got some great news about when this is available soon as well. Then from there, the detail enhancement is the next thing. Now, all cameras have got the ability to adjust the sharpness of the camera. And with that, it's great because if you want to bring in some details, for example, if you're shooting an LED screen and you want to get some details in the text, you can increase the sharpness. What it can also do is increase the noise. So what we've got in here is our new detail enhancement tools, which allow you to enhance the edges of your images without enhancing the noise that goes with it. So you can really get a much better image when you're shooting computer screens and things like that. So combining this edge detail enhancement with the ability to maybe just adjust the blue channel to get a computer screen looking more natural, you can get a much more balanced shoot when you're working in, again, challenging situations. So that's kind of the colorimetry, I suppose, of the P200 update, and that's in itself been a huge amount of work that we've been working on, and we're really proud to have to bring this out for a camera that fits in this bracket as far as pricing. As I said before, you could spend literally 10 times this amount before you get into these kind of level of tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I think P200 has already proven to be a really good value camera, and now to have these tools in there for under $3,000 US, I think it's basically unprecedented. I had Raphael from France say that I sound a bit quiet, so I'm going to start shouting because the microphone's up here. Thanks for all the hellos from all over the world. Is there anyone from Australia that's managed to log in at 4 a.m. and join us? Because if there is, we'll send you a free t-shirt. I think that's only fair. Anyway, we should get going.
Cool. On the Australia point, if we do stumble or if we're not quite making sense, give us a little bit of a break. It is 4 o'clock in the morning here, so this may be the first and last 4 a.m. webinar we do. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, from Perth. Wow, that's a late night, not an early morning. Yeah. So well done.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, you'll have to inbox us to Eamon@bird-dog.tv and I'll send you a t-shirt, mate. Just let me know what size.
Cool. Back to it.
Yeah.
So then from there, we've got sort of more under the hood updates as well. And these are really important. And as Eamon said, there's essentially some of these updates are more important than the real whizzy ones. And that comes down to the new codec engine. One thing we're really proud of here at BirdDog is that we develop all of our own silicon and processing for our images. So once we get that picture off the camera head, we're processing all of that within our own video processing engine. And that allows us to do some pretty cool stuff. You've seen with some of our other products, like our 4-channel UHD encoder box. We can do a lot of things in pretty small packages. But it also means that we can keep working on things. So the new codec engine is a massive improvement. What we've been able to do is increase the image quality we're getting out of that NDI stream at the same bit rate. So essentially what we're going to see is when you're working at a regular NDI resolution or bit rate, you're going to see a visually improved image quality with that. And the amazing thing is it happens with slightly lower latency as well. So it's more efficient and it's better quality. So computationally better and visually better as well.
So you're saying faster, better pictures, lower late.
Yeah,
faster, better pictures, less bandwidth.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
So it's a pretty major update there. So
nice.
Yeah. Then the big one for me, and I think for a lot of people, certainly people that are used to working with PTZ cameras in general, is the control engine. Now, if you had have installed a PTZ camera maybe 2-3 years ago, you'd have a PTZ plugged in and then you'd have a controller. And that controller changed all the settings and made everything work. What we've seen over the last couple of years is this explosion with NDI, and that's really been the help of NDI, is you've got all these different ways of communicating with cameras. You know, we're using vMix here, for example. You've got our cam control software, which we'll get onto in a moment. You've got the web user interface. There's all sorts of different places where you can control a camera. And making that make sense in a production environment in real time has been a real challenge. And I think that's been some feedback we've had from our customers is how do we get all our settings within sync and how do we know where we're at? And it's a bigger problem than just having a camera that can handle more settings. It's actually how you make sure those settings are always in sync and everything working. And that's really the big change we've made with our camera control engine. So you'll find that whether you're using any of our control devices or a third-party device, all of those will be in sync all the time. So if you make a change, for example, on your PTZ keyboard, the cam control interface will update and show you what that change is. So there's no kind of confusing bits about what setting is taking priority.
Because there's four ways you can control the cameras, right? There's the web dashboard, there's cam control, there's the remote control or the on-screen display, and then there's the keyboard. So now they all sync perfectly, which is a really nice feature.
Absolutely. And I'll get into a bit more about some of these other details in a moment about the finer movements and quicker reactions, because that's, again, a really cool part of it.
Yep, just before we go into that, I saw a couple more from Australia. So shout out to Mel and a shout out to, was it Danny? David in Sydney. So yeah, send us an email, guys, and we'll send you a t-shirt.
Excellent. Now, we've got a bit more in this than just the P200. I think the P200 is something that people have been really looking for as far as updates. And I really feel that we've got a great set of tools that allow people to get not only the camera dialed in and looking great, but give you a huge amount more control than what you'd normally have with a camera like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But P100, we love this camera. And actually, between Eamon and I, we had a bet when we first started shipping this camera as to which one would be the most popular. And it's actually becoming pretty neck and neck with that one.
Yeah, I said P200 and I've been winning so far, but P100 is catching up very quickly. So Dan might end up winning this bet.
Yep. We'll see what happens. But the cool thing with P100, and I think this year has been a really popular thing, is that you can plug it in with USB. So even people that aren't necessarily ready to go full NDI into a full networked environment, you can get the world's best web camera with a P100, and you can use that straight up with any of your favorite streaming software or web conferencing, and then grow into production afterwards.
Yeah. It's worth noting we're using a P100 now, so yeah.
They can't see us because we're doing the presentation right now. But,
that's true.
We'll get back to us in a minute. You can see us. This is really exciting. A camera that's under $2,000. It's actually substantially under $2,000. The P100 gets that color matrix love as well. And again, the fact that the engineers have been able to put this into a camera like this is an amazing feat. We really, as I said, we love the P100. It's worth noting that all of our cameras use Sony image modules and Sony sensors. And then from there, what we do is add in a lot of our production or a lot of our processing know-how. So it extends these days beyond just making NDI. We're doing a lot of this color control and everything within our processing as well, which makes a massive difference to the overall finished result. So P100 gets a massive bump with that color matrix, and it works amazingly. I'm going to show a live demo of it a little later on in this webinar, so you can get a feel for how it works with the color matrix control. But that's a great feature. To get back to what I was talking about before, which was the control engine, we've spoken about the setting sync. So all of our applications work together. Everything, wherever you make the setting change, it'll be reflected everywhere else. But the last 2 points here about finer movements and quicker reactions, for me, the P100 really is the biggest custodian of this. It gets the biggest benefit. P100 is a lower cost camera than a P200. It doesn't have the same zoom, and its robotics aren't quite as fine, and that's a reality. That's the reason why there's two different models.
It's almost half the price. So yeah.
What we've managed to do, and again, I'm going to remind you that this is a firmware update. This isn't a hardware update, but we've managed to make a huge amount of improvements to the way that those controls work. So when you're zooming in, we've got a great feature with all of our cameras, which is zoom-aware movements. And so when you've zoomed in really tight, quite often a PTZ camera will be really hard to wrangle at that point because you try and just nudge it a little bit to the left or to the right, and because you're zoomed in, the movements can seem massive. So with our zoom aware movements, it becomes much more fine tuned. So regardless of what level of zoom, it still has the same kind of level of movement when you're adjusting the position. But what we've now done is at the very finest end, so when you're at the very slowest movement within a P100, and it's true for all of our cameras, but within the very slowest movement, we've got much more finer control. So you'll notice that especially on the tilt on a P100, it's super smooth and everything works beautifully on there. So that's a really great improvement. The last part of this is we sped up the control mechanism. So the fact that we have everything syncing together, it's a supercharged control engine. It's running at 10 times the speed that it was before, literally. So when it says quicker reactions, it doesn't mean the camera moves faster. It just means when you're telling it to do something, it'll react much more quickly and more fluidly. So it just feels like you're much more in control. And again, that's across all of the camera range. So that new control engine is a big deal. And it's sort of in itself, we would have made a big deal about it even without all the color matrix stuff. So this release is a massive thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're calling it our biggest update ever, because it genuinely is.
Yeah. So we wanted to come out swinging, I suppose, with the two big cameras, or the two most popular cameras, which is the P100 and the P200. Now we want to talk about software, and I think in a lot of ways this is really where we're going to be pushing or showing a lot of progress moving forward with our cameras. It really is the gateway to all of the awesome control that you can get with these cameras. Eamon?
Well, yeah, a user interface is like a joke, right? If you have to explain how to use it, then probably not that good. Cam control is very, very intuitive and very easy to use. It's basically all of the settings of the camera right there in a software interface. So all of the tools that we've just shown you for P200 and P100 are now ported into cam control. And as Dan was saying, it real-time syncs across all of the different ways to operate the cameras. So it's now got automatic camera detection as well. So if I've got a P100 plugged in, it'll show me the tools for P100. If I've got a P4K plugged in, it'll show me the tools for P4K. If I've got a P200 plugged in, it'll show me the tools for P200. So that's really nice.
Yeah, I think hands up with this, guys. With Cam Control version 1, that in a lot of ways was a bit of a blunt instrument. It was designed really for P200, so for the first camera we shipped, and it had a level of control in there that allowed you to quickly access some of the controls. It didn't have obviously this real-time sync thing because we're only just announcing that now. Yeah. But also, it's probably worth noting that we actually have a camera range that spans 6 cameras at the moment. So having it dialed in for one particular camera could lead to some pretty weird experiences working with those other cameras. So that automatic camera detection thing is actually a pretty cool feature. And effectively, when you connect to a camera, it'll automatically work out what that camera is and draw that interface for that camera. So in this case, this is all the shiny new controls for a P200. But we can also, if we've got a P4K connected next to it, you get all of those shiny controls for the P4K, which are different and more extensive because of that camera.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's some features in Cam Control, and it's free, so I'd encourage everybody to download it. It's a Windows 10 application. You can actually copy the settings from one camera to another camera and color match your P200s, for example, in a matter of seconds. There's also a real full screen output, so you can output Cam Control to a second monitor to dial in while you're using it on the software application and have a full screen output on a second monitor. So that sort of gets overlooked a lot, and not many people are talking about it, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that works really well, especially if you've got your controls on one screen and then you've got a larger screen that you can get more critical, especially now that we have all these extra controls. So rather than trying to control it within a small little window, you have a second larger screen to control it. The other thing we've got within the Cam Control version 2 is this snapshot. And that snapshot thing is actually, for me, it's a godsend.
Yeah.
When you're in a rush with a production, you get the colors looking just about right. And now, again, with these extra tools, you can do more stuff. But you just always want to get it just that little bit better, a little bit better. But at some point, it no longer gets better, it starts getting worse. And that may just be me, because the way I work with things. But we have this concept of snapshots, which is kind of like a slot memory, really. So when you get the camera looking pretty good, you can just kind of pause that setting. And then when you go and change some things and you go, maybe this will look better, and you go, wow, I've completely messed that up. You can just effectively do a massive undo and get it back to that previous setting that was looking great.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great safeguard. I think that's a really cool thing. So Cam Control 2 is a really exciting release in itself, and we've got some big things planned for that control platform. But I think that it really kind of rounds out the experience and makes all of our PTZ cameras a joy to use. It's super fast, and I'll show you once we get through this presentation. We'll do a bit of a demo showing how interactive Cam Control really is. It's pretty awesome. Alrighty, so we've got a couple of other cameras as well, which I've seen in the chat. There's a few people who've got their P400s and P4Ks. These are our latest and greatest cameras. They're obviously by their names there for the 4K version of our cameras. And these guys, we did a big announcement not that long ago about the color matrix control. So that was a lot of the learnings we had within that have gone into the P200 and P100.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of love that we've given to these two cameras as well. So it's a pretty major update for these. The codec engine, which is what we talked about early on, which is our update, which gives you higher image quality, lower latency, and it's actually another point in here is it's more network friendly. So if you've got a situation, NDI runs on a network, right? And you have a limited amount of bandwidth for going from the camera to a number of different sources. So if you had, for example, a video switcher, whether it's a TriCast or a vMix or a Wirecast or any number of the dozens of them that are out there, but you also wanted to take that output from the camera to a number of other places, this new codec engine actually can handle distributing to more of those outputs over your gigabit connection. So it's a more efficient way of sending the network data. Some of these things may seem a bit subtle, but in real terms, it just means that it is just a bit smoother and a bit easier to scale as you go up further. Probably the biggest thing though for P4K and P400 users is cam control. Up until now, it's been in a world of on-screen display, which is the same as any other camera. Like most cameras, you have to go into on-screen display to set up their settings, but now it's completely integrated. Every single setting in your P400 and P4K is within cam control, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, and it comes up with all the new control engine as well. So settings sync again, and the finer movements, quicker reactions. So all of the cool stuff that we had straight up out of the P200 is actually, it's across the entire family, and it's a massive update from there. So I think that's kind of the end of the presentation. So I'm just going to cut back to us, so you have to look at us again. We're really, hopefully it comes across, even though it's pretty early in the morning, we're really excited about what our team's been able to achieve here. They're a team of wizards as far as I'm concerned, as far as getting all of these new features into cameras. And probably the biggest thing for me is the fact that we can do this with our existing hardware. I think a lot of these software updates are such a major update that you would normally expect that to be a version 2 or a generation 2 of a camera or a product. But we've got a pretty good history these days of all of our products just adding in all sorts of new things. And this one I think is probably one of the most exciting things that we've done with a product update.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to talk negatively about other people who make cameras, but I think this is the sort of thing that other people would charge for, and that's not our style. So
if you haven't picked up, Eamon's the free man. He likes giving away things for free.
It's easy to market things that are free. Yeah.
So I think at this point, that's kind of the news. What I wanted to do now is just cut across and show you how this thing works. And so I'm just going to switch across. So I've got my setup here, and this is just a little view, hopefully to give you a bit of context. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see that we've got the cam control running. So this is cam control version 2, and you can see in here I've got 3 cameras set up. So you can see the one that we've been doing our presentation on. We've got one up at the top, which is just a little wide camera. And then I've got a P200 that I've got pointing at a color chart. And this is probably a good point, is when you start to get into things like color matrix, a color chart will actually be your friend. Whether you use just something like this, which is a data color chart, or whether you get a proper video-based color chart, it really does help when you're trying to really dial these things in. You can still make things look more pleasing to the eye just by using color matrix in any case, but using the color chart really gets into the ability to really fine tune and make it all perfect. So within this view here, I've got the output as well, so you can see the output as I'm changing. So let me just zoom out. What I'm going to do here is just start to adjust some things. So if you look on the color chart, where we're actually wanting to live in this particular color chart, there's all sorts of colors that make sense for photography as well as video. But this second row, which hopefully you can see my mouse moving, which has got cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, and blue, which happen to line up very nicely with the color controls that we have here. Look, without going into a full-on shoot and showing all the color controls, and I think Eamon's going to talk about what we're doing with that shortly, what I'm just going to show you here is the level of control. And if you have a look at the video output side of things, I'm just going to pick up the red, for example. And if you look at that red chip, which is sort of down there, you can see my red is disappearing. So the red has gone, and now the red's coming back. But what you're going to notice here is none of the other colors are being affected. And that's the same thing if I grab the cyan, which is that top chip, and I'm taking the color out of cyan, or I'm really cranking it up. So it really gives you this awesome level of control, and you can see how quickly, so zoom in, okay, let me just zoom into the monitor. You can see how quickly when I'm adjusting it, how quickly that adjustment happens. So it probably looks a bit subtle on the Zoom call, but we have a recording of this that we'll put online afterwards. But what I'm doing here is just on the cyan, I'm taking the color away and then I'm adding it in, and you can see there that all the other colors look fine, but that top chip next to the white is getting brighter and less bright. Then from there, we can also take that and change the color of it as well. So we might want to make it a bit more blue, or we might want to make it a bit more green. And again, I can't stress enough how, if you look at all the other color chips, they're still looking fine. So this really gives you that level of control when something's not quite looking right, or if you've got someone that's wearing a challenging colored shirt, for example, you can get that dialed in to make it look really realistic.
Yeah, I think Adash, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hey, Adash in Singapore, summed it up perfectly with just a simple wow.
And I think the important thing is this is in the camera. This is not something that's happening. The cam control is just the interface. You can adjust these settings on the web UI. So you can go in anywhere in the control mechanisms and change this. We're making this adjustment at the camera. And so that means that when you've got this set up, you're not doing any post-production, you're not doing color grading or anything like that outside of the camera. The output of this camera is being adjusted before it even hits NDI, before it goes over your network. So the control of it is really awesome. It means that you can have everything just looking pristine.
Yeah. So in terms of getting some more videos and things made, we're actually going to do a shoot. It might be this coming week. It might be the week after. I'll be honest, we've been pretty busy. But we'll do a shoot with P100, P200, P400 and P4K. And we will publish some various scenes. You may have seen, I asked a question about it in the user group. We'll publish some various scenes of inside with a green screen, outside. We'll put that on YouTube and probably make the files available for download as well. So
yeah, what we want to do with this is we've actually been planning to do this video shoot for a while, and it's one of the most commonly asked questions is where's some sample footage. Obviously, this is not something that we've just baked overnight, all of these controls. It's something we've known's been coming. Compound that with the fact that Melbourne, we've had a pretty tough lockdown, so being able to do shoots with people and being able to do things has been a bit of a challenge. As everything this year is a bit of a challenge. So we've been planning this shoot for a while. What we will be doing is effectively giving you or giving people a chance to have a look at various different shooting scenarios, and hopefully it's going to highlight not only the quality of the cameras but also the controls and everything now that we've got them released. Speaking of, when's it going to be released, Eamon?
When's all this stuff?
This is pretty famous for us because we say soon, don't we normally?
A couple of weeks. No, we're targeting Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday. So these tools are ready to go. This firmware will be available for download on Monday. It allows you to jump in and get into it. The other cool thing, which is really exciting, is all of our documentation's all up to date. It's ready to go. So essentially, we're going to have everything ready for people to work out straight away on Monday. So
yeah, the reason we're not publishing it now is it's 4 a.m. on Saturday here, and if people have questions or anything like that, we want to be available to answer them. So we thought we'll do it after the weekend.
Yep.
So yeah.
And personally, we don't really want people chucking new firmware on their cameras and doing a Sunday shoot, for example. Let's
No, load it up Monday instead of doing maybe your church shoot on Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, do it after and do some testing.
Absolutely. One thing I'm just going to quickly jump back to before I think we're going to throw to Q&As pretty soon.
Yep.
I'm just going to go back to this user interface and just highlight, like I said here, I've got 3 cameras are shown up here, and they're actually 3 different cameras. The one on the left here is a P100, the one on the right is P100, in the middle's a P200. Now, at this point, really all I've got here is just something to show you the user interface. But if you have a look down here, what you're going to see is this camera, because it's a P100, has a different set of controls to the P200. And whilst we mentioned it earlier that you can have, it'll draw different controls for the cameras, you can have a mix of those. So it's not saying that when cam control runs, it connects to the first camera and says, right, you're running in P200 mode. It's for each individual camera. It'll detect what that camera is and show you exactly what those controls are for that camera. And that's really cool, because if you've got, for example, a P4K or a P400 as your front center camera, but then like us, we've got this wide camera at the top, which is a P100, you can adjust all of those within that same interface and get that all looking great.
Sure. Should I start going through some of the questions?
Do you want to show that video one more time, or do you want to just jump into the questions?
Yeah, show the video again.
Yeah, we like our video.
So. Didn't catch the start.
Yeah, okay. So we'll just roll that video and then we'll jump into some Q&A. Very good. Okay, so that concludes the, I guess, the formal part of the presentation. So now I think there's a bunch of questions. So Eamon's got his laptop here, so we'll go through them as many as we can. We're here for a while, so feel free to hang about if you've got any questions. Another thing to note is once we finish this, in the next few hours, maybe towards the end of the day, we'll post this video online on YouTube as well, so you can watch it again. So let's kick it off.
Cool. So Alan asked, which camera are we using to broadcast the webinar? So this one is a P100, and the color matching that also the tuning that Dan did before, that was using a P200.
Yep, so we just got 2 different models here. So you can see on this 3-up view here, the 2 outside ones are P100s and the middle one is the P200. It's worth noting that when I came in this morning, I just turned everything on and I've just done a really quick adjustment. So there's more that we could do, but we think considering we've got really no professional lights or anything in the studio at the moment, it's doing a pretty good job for a little web camera in this case. So.
Yeah, absolutely. P100's a little surprise packet, I think. Does the P400 have a 4K sensor?
So the P400 has a 4K sensor. It can run in HD modes as well. So, and you can choose with that whether you have HD running in full frame, so running on the whole sensor, or you can have it so it's a cutout of that 4K, which gives you more zoom as well. So it's, it actually does have some pretty cool features within that. Yeah,
Anthony also asked what's the difference between the P400 and the P4K. If you go to our website and click in the drop-down section PTZ range, and then scroll down, there's actually comparison charts, and I need to probably highlight that better across the web pages, and you can check out what the differences are there. But the big difference is it has a 1-inch Sony Exmor R sensor and a Zeiss Sonar T lens. So the components are sort of just at a higher end. It's more comparable to
the top of the range.
Top of the range PTZ. Done anything with VSCA control on P200?
Yeah, so the control engine, the question was, have we done anything with VSCA control? Absolutely, the entire control engine has been re-engineered. So everything from VSCA over IP, NDI control, everything has been redone, revisited. So you'll find a lot of things will behave much faster and better. The camera itself has been been great anyway, but this is just next level. So if there's any more real-time kind of communication that you wanted to have with cameras using Visca, you're going to find all of that works a whole lot better.
Yeah. Edward Bradley, who's very active in our user group, so nice to meet you, Edward, and thanks for joining in. Asked, do any of the enhancements add any latency?
No, in fact, because of the new codec engine, we have less latency. So it's actually a win-win situation from that point of view. Because we're doing all of that, the enhancements in hardware, we're not doing software processing. We're not taking it off and doing anything kind of weird in a post-processing environment. This is actually pre-processing, if you like. So we're doing that on the video line as it comes in. So there's no additional delay. And owing to the new codec engine, we're actually going to see slightly less delay in the outputs.
When do the updates come out? Monday. Just to reinforce that one, I'll get rid of that one. Okay, is it possible to quickly sync color matrix and gamma settings between multiple cameras?
Yes, absolutely. So you can take probably a point here. The answer is yes, but with an asterisk. So if you're using a P200 and you've got another P200, absolutely, you can sync that color matrix setting from one to the other. And this can work really well if you've got a camera shoot where you've got potentially some manned cameras, maybe some Sony or Panasonic or whatever, Blackmagic cameras, and you wanted to get those to be a similar color profile. What you can do with that is is set that up on one camera and then drop that across to all the others. Now, when you go to different camera models, they are using, especially the P100 to the P200, they do have a different sensor. And so with that, while you can copy those settings, it won't be exactly the same. So it's not a workflow we'd necessarily recommend. What you can do is very quickly dial those in though, because of that the cam control settings. So you can really get them balanced up really quickly. And when you're working with that in the UI, you'll notice it is a pretty easy job to get them dialed in together. But copying settings from one camera to the other of the same family, absolutely.
Hey, Lawrence from MediaCast, just a quick shout out for that question. Yes, the system requirements for cam control remain the same for the new version as well. Cam control on Mac.
Good question. So this, as you've seen here, we're running on a Windows machine. Cam control is a Windows application. It's probably a theme that you may have seen through our applications at the moment. Another thing you may have seen is that Eamon's laptop, whenever we do these things, is a Mac, and so is mine. We love Macs, and we recognise the world isn't all Windows. In fact, in this space, there's quite a lot of, quite the opposite in a lot of cases. It's something we're working on. So at the moment, this release is a Windows-only release, as Cam Control was before. But what you will see over time is Cam Control really is a area of focus for us, and you'll see many new features and many new platforms that it's going to work on in the pretty near future.
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about P100 and P200. Do you want to address some of those, like color matching and things like this?
Yep. That's an
open
topic.
Sort of an open topic, yeah. So there's a lot of people asking in various different ways about matching a P200 and a P100.
Yeah, cool.
So,
okay, yeah, no worries at all. So I think, and again, this is we're a very open company. As anyone that belongs to our user group will see, we jump in and we're happy to help out wherever, and we'll lean in as best we can when there's some challenging situations. As far as the camera situation, or trying to match different cameras. As I mentioned earlier, the P100 and P200, they're both Sony sensors, but they are different sensors. So in terms to match them, if you just copy the settings from one to the other, you're not going to see them look exactly the same. And that's just, they've got different optics. They're a different sensor altogether. But now that we have these controls, there's kind of two things that are happening. One is that we have, with cam control and settings sync, everything is always up to date. And quite often when people have been trying to match different cameras, they've got caught in this trap where you've got control happening from the camera on-screen display. You've got control that you're trying to adjust within the web UI, maybe even trying to adjust it within a TriCaster, and then also cam control. And everything kind of is just fighting with each other and not quite right. It doesn't quite seem to be doing what it's supposed to. And it might seem like some settings jump around. So all of that has been resolved in this release, because that setting sync means everything's always in sync. So your cameras will behave a lot more predictably, just because the nature of NDI means that they can be accessed in different places and everything looks great. Now from there, the difference in the sensors is far less apparent in this update, as far as just the fact that you can adjust them in. Generally what we see is that the color profile between the two cameras, the P100, when you're running in a default profile, In the color matrix, the red is probably heading a little bit more towards the orange side of things, and on the P200, the red's heading a little bit more towards the purple side of things. And so it's a very quick adjustment to get them back in line, and then from there, most of the other things actually fall in place. So I guess a long-winded way of saying that it's much easier to match those two cameras together. You'll find that when you mess around with those, that's going to work really well.
A few people have asked about the keyboard, so I can sort of address that. We've just done the camera range, and obviously the keyboard's a very integral part of the camera range. So it's not going to get ignored. It's just next on the list. We didn't want to hold back the releases, so that'll be coming out at some point.
Yeah, so the keyboard release, it's worth noting the keyboard absolutely works with the cameras that are running the update, and you'll find it does get a benefit just owing to the new camera control engine. So the keyboard, without doing any firmware update, will actually work better with the cameras being updated. But we have a lot of surprises coming with that. There's actually a bigger update coming for those the keyboards as well. That's not part of this announcement, but never fear, there's definitely plenty of love coming the keyboard way as well.
Yeah, so Sherman, thanks for joining in. I'll answer your question. So he asked if Cam Control has the ability for a second tab or for more than 3 cameras. So at the moment, no. You can have unlimited cameras, of course. You just have to close one to open up a new one after you get to 3. And really, that's more about real estate on the screen than anything else. So yeah, that's how it works at the moment. Can I use a USB controller for PTZ feature with Cam Control software?
Okay, I'm just processing that because there's different places for USB and PTZs and all the rest. So, so right now, Cam Control version 2 doesn't have keyboard shortcuts or external controllers. So with external control, really the way we envisage people using that is to use a PTZ keyboard, whether that's one of ours or other ones. It works great with other manufacturers as well. It's a great bit of feedback and something we will be working on. I think there's a lot of people, and when I've been doing this presentation, I've been working on my little stream deck here. So I think you'll find a lot of our devices will start to get integration with third-party controllers. Again, we've got a bunch of things that we're working on. The engineers have been pretty busy on this guy in recent times, but there's plenty more coming as far as various updates for our products. So watch this space is the best answer for that one.
Yeah. Someone's asked, will there be an easy way to access the tally, but not from NDI?
Well, I guess you can via Visca is the answer to that. So the cameras have got tally built into them. So you've got a little tally light on top of the P200 and the P400 and P4K. And those by default work with NDI. So as soon as you connect it up with any vision switcher, if you're going to live, it's going to come up with its tally light. Tally is supported via Visca as well, and if you wanted to, there's Visca IP, which is an IP protocol, so you can access that via Visca IP if you wanted to as well. The cameras are perfectly accessible from that environment. So if you need any help with that, I think that's probably a support ticket. We can guide you through how to enable that Visca from other environments.
Yep. Shout out to Mads in Denmark from Video People. Hey Mads, he's asked about Kelvins on P200. We knew someone would ask this, so
yeah, I'm surprised we got this far. So again, we've mentioned before, there's our user group. I think I saw some comments with people asking. We do have a pretty active user group within Facebook, and Eamon's, as someone said, that's where he lives, and I try and jump in as much as possible as well. So within there, we've got a lot of people using cameras for all sorts of reasons, and we have a huge amount of success stories in there. But then there's also people asking about features that aren't necessarily in one product that are in the other. And it comes back to what I was mentioning before with cam control. Each camera has a different set of functions, and when you connect to it, it comes up with those set of functions. Now, Kelvin is one of these things where the P100 didn't have Kelvin when it was first released, when we brought it out. And much like this update, we've added in what we can and put everything in that we can with all our products. And that really is our mantra. We don't want to hold things back for a next generation product. So a good example of that is Kelvin within P100. Because we use all of the Sony sensors, if you look at any Sony PTZ camera, they don't have Kelvins either. It's kind of a thing that some cameras that use Panasonic sensors or maybe some Chinese lower end sensors do have this Kelvin setting. But there's kind of a bit of a break with Kelvins where with a lower cost camera, you'll have that Kelvin adjustment. And then there's kind of a big step in the middle where there's a lot of cameras that don't actually support Kelvin. But I think what we have here is a really strong set of tools. In fact, it gives you a lot more control than what you would have just using Kelvin. So you'll find, as much as there isn't Kelvin in the P200 in this release, that to be able to adjust in that kind of way is really pretty easy. You can get your color balance really nice and really dialed in very quickly with those tools.
The other one was actually more like a product suggestion from Ed. So he asked about if there was ways to maybe lock a section of cam control so that you don't mess it up.
Yep. So I think,
Probably put that on the list.
yeah, absolutely. I love feedback, and that's kind of a lot of the reasons why I jump into the Facebook user group is to get ideas and get customer feedback on products. And some of these things that we've been hearing, for example, can we have more than 3 cameras connected, and can we lock areas? These are all great things. So we definitely listen to what people say. We don't have the ability to lock within there at the moment, but feedback is absolutely always welcome.
Will the enhancements need more PoE power?
Absolutely not. No, the enhancements are all they're built into it, so there's no there's no detraction from any part of the camera from this point of view. There's no more power. There's no extra latency. There's nothing that will change from the overall physical properties of the camera. It just gives you these extra controls.
Yeah. So Alan Sargent, hey Alan, he asked if we can access cam control for Mac OS. It's Windows only at the moment. When you saw those windows with Mac close buttons and things like that at the top, they were actually a web browser. So you can access all of the camera's features through any web browser on the network. So you can still use a Mac to access them, but cam control is Windows software.
Yeah.
Any news on Dante from our great mate Wim in Netherlands? Hey Wim.
Hey Wim. So with the Dante release, we announced that a couple of months back. We've released the Dante Bridge software, and also a little known fact is our BirdDog Cloud platform also supports Dante as well. So we're working through that. The hardware release of Dante is coming along really well. It's not part of this release. We wanted to prioritize the camera control and the camera color release. We think that's from a broader audience point of view, it gives every one of our customers a massive amount of improvement. But it doesn't mean we've forgotten about Dante. That's coming really very soon. So I don't have an announcement for an actual date today. I know we're famous for saying it'll be in 2 weeks and it takes longer. So we'll bring that out as soon as possible, and that's absolutely actively being worked on at the moment.
Shout out to Vidar in up there in Norway. He's asked if I upgrade and run into issues, can I downgrade back or roll back firmware?
Yep, absolutely. So what we will do with the update is it's something that we've asked. We do have a repository for all of our previous firmware now, and that's something our customers have asked for. So if you update to a new version and maybe find for whatever reason the NDI version is not compatible with something else, we have a repository where you can go back to a previous build. But in this case, on our website, we'll actually have the link to the current shipping version of the firmware as well, and you can absolutely go back to it.
Yeah. We've had a question from Ivan. I think I know Ivan. I think he's in Norway, right? Will there be any actual or current position feedback from the cameras? So I'm assuming that's like a 3D question.
Well, yeah, there's various different protocols. Again, within the VISCA control, so within the camera control, you can request positional information. So that's been improved significantly with the overall cam control, the overall settings sync. We don't have support for things like, as you mentioned, 3D and things at this stage, but I guess there's a lot more control being built into these, and things like cam control are getting a lot of extra features over the course of the future. So it's the answer's not at the moment, I suppose, is the best answer for that one.
Yeah. Kevin has asked, is there a white balance control available with a picker?
No.
No. Okay, yep. Move on. Lawrence from MediaCast has asked if cam control. Yeah, Lawrence, so those issues you're experiencing with cam control, that should be fixed in version 2. Let us know if it's not. Todd, our mate over in the USA, has been asking a bunch of questions, so I want to try and find one of his. He's asked if there's going to be any sort of documentation, videos, best practices, or recommendations on how to use all of these new tools. Actually, Todd, we have engaged with someone who is not from BirdDog to actually make some videos for us on how to use P200, the tools, color matching with P100, some best practices and things like that. So we hope to have those out in a couple of weeks. So hang in there.
I guess in the short term, what we've got is all the documentation is ready to go with this
Yeah,
release. So we do have all the user guides and everything ready to go. And I'll be doing a few little recordings just on general setup, which we'll have over the course of the next few days. But as you say, there's going to be a lot more walkthroughs and a lot more videos being produced over the very short next period.
Yeah. Is NDI VLAN compatible?
This is actually a good question. So the answer is yes, you can run NDI over a VLAN, but that did remind me of something, which is another really cool feature, which is going to be featured in all of our firmware for our converters as well as cameras, is we now have access manager groups in the firmware. So where this can be really cool is if you've got an environment where there's a lot of NDI sources, whether that's an education, corporate, or a production environment where you've got a lot of different sources. At the moment, what NDI does is give you a big list of all of those sources. But there is a mechanism which is called NDI groups, which is part of the NDI access manager. And what that means is you can start to, I guess, separate and put products into individual bins of groups. And so all of our products allow you to do that now. So you can make all the cameras for a particular production appear in just that group. And unless your receiver is part of that group, they don't appear anywhere else. So it's a great way of kind of managing larger deployments. And that's something that's really new. And as far as we're aware, I think it's the first product out there in a hardware point of view that actually supports these groups. So.
There's a question about live stream that I saw earlier. Yeah, our products are compatible with live stream. So, we had a question about a waveform monitor and a scope in cam control.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a good idea. Okay, so this one's from Ocker. Hey guys, a little off topic. Does anyone know what Luma and Chroma subsampling the 4K family applies to the signal? This guy does.
Nothing like putting me on the spot.
That's the answer.
Yeah, so without getting into a full kind of video lesson here, basically with video, there's different ways of storing the information. What comes off the image sensor is a huge amount of data, and it's stored into luminance and chroma. So luminance being the brightness and chroma being the color data. So with that, you then need to find a way to make that into a manageable format to be able to send it across, or to try and cut the amount of data that's being used, because otherwise it ends up being an enormous amount of information. And so this concept of chroma subsampling has been around for quite a long time. Probably the most famous one is Mini DV or DV, which came out, showing my age here, probably 20 years ago. And that is using a chroma subsampling of 420, which basically means that your luminance, so the brightness information is all stored in the video signal. But there's some tricks you can do to start cutting out some of the color information without getting a massive visual hit. And that's up for debate what people call a massive visual hit, of course. Different people have different requirements for pictures. But it's a way of taking information out without using compression. We're just removing some of the color information that visually doesn't necessarily get seen. So chroma subsampling has come a long way, and a lot of it's got to do with picture resolution. In DV, you could really see the chroma subsampling, and red is a great example. Red's probably the most challenging video color to work with in a color environment, and so reds became a real problem for Mini DV. But as you move forward into HD and now UHD, there's much more pixels, and there's a lot more definition in the color space that's happening with those within those formats. So color chroma subsampling is something that's around and has always been, but it's something that's becoming less of a visual thing. So within NDI, the chroma subsampling as standard is 422, which is just general standard for video infrastructure. So 422 is what you'd see on an SDI signal from pretty much any source, and NDI and HD respects that fully. When you go to UHD or 4K, the default with NDI is 420, and that was actually done, I'm talking for a bit here, hopefully it's not going to bore people. That was actually done deliberately. NewTek, and I was talking with Dr. Cross about this when they released NDI for UHD. They did a blind test with people where using 422 versus 420, effectively for the same amount of data on the network, using 422, it can be less compressed. So you have less compression artifacts. And the visual difference between having 422 more compressed or 420 less compressed, people preferred the 420, and that became the standard for NDI. Now, there's certainly some tricks you can do within our UHD converters. So things like our 4K quads, 4K HDMI boxes and things, we can turn on 422 for UHD. We can crank up the video bitrate so it can handle less compression. We can also turn on 10-bit as well with those. So there is things, and owing to the ability of within our engineering, because we make our own video processing, we can kind of overcrank some of those settings. But
Yeah. Joseph Walker's asked about compatibility with TriCasters. Yeah, all of our products are compatible with NewTek TriCasters. It sounds from the questions there, Joseph, that you're having a few problems. So you probably should get in touch with our support and work through it with them if there's a specific thing. But no, there's no issues with using our product with TriCasters. We have people all over the world using our products with TriCaster.
Yep. I guess maybe a different interpretation is things like that color control is that in TriCaster, and So with that, the color control is available through all of the interfaces on the camera. So if you have if you want to access from the web user interface with your on your computer, that's great. If you want to use your remote control and use the on-screen display, that's fine. Cam control. TriCaster itself, it obviously is the gold standard for working with NDI, so all of those features absolutely work within there. But those advanced color controls with the camera, you need to access that via one of the interfaces of the camera.
Yeah. Robert Hall has asked, is there a way to store color matrix presets and save them out of the software to share between machines?
This is interesting. I know there's a guy who works at one of our distributors, Dan Fletcher. I'm going to call him out because he has that was his first thing he asked. So you'll be glad to know you're in good company there. It's a really great feature. What we see growing over time is a bit of a community of these settings. The fact that you can really adjust the profile of these cameras means that if you wanted to make it match certain camera models, whether it's a Blackmagic cinema camera, whether it's a Sony camera or a Panasonic, you can really get in and adjust those color profiles. Now, right now, those settings are stored just as within the preset of the camera. We did want to put that in this version of Cam Control, but we want to go further than that. So there's some things happening with that where you will be able to share some of those controls. It's not part of this release, but it's absolutely the path that we're thinking on with that, where we want people to be able to spend some time and get something set up really nicely and be able to share that, and someone else can load that onto their camera. So there'll be a file format that we'll be publishing that allows you to do that.
Yeah. Alex has asked if we have the ability to do up-down cross conversion. Up-down, conversion, different NDI feeds to output on the converters.
On the converters, right? Okay. So our mantra really with our converters at the moment is that we respect the pixels that come in, and the reason for that is that in an environment where you have multiple different sources coming in, if you have various different pixel sizes and things, then we don't want to kind of start creating a second layer of confusion around that. So essentially, if you're getting a 1080p signal into a converter, it's going to respect every one of those pixels and put out a 1080p signal. Now, I understand there's certainly some reasons why you might want to change that, but absolutely by and large, that's our mantra, is that we want to keep those pixels exactly as they are. So if you wanted to cross convert, you can do that within your switcher. So for example, if you're using vMix or TriCaster, that will do cross conversion within there, and then what we do is respect that output. So.
Yeah. Jamie Hedges has asked why the sudden price increase in the UK. My understanding is the prices have gone down. So if prices have gone up, maybe can you send me an email on that? It's just eamon@bird-dog.tv. Yep. So Anthony has asked, how do you get 10-bit 422 in an 8-bit 420 NDI format?
You don't, but you do some interesting tricks. So NDI, in some ways, is very much, and again, I'm conscious I keep showing my age here. DigiBetacam had, so that's the old tape format, digital tape format. You could run that in 10-bit or 8-bit, and SDI in general can run in 8-bit or 10-bit. And what it is the first 8 bits are sort of the main signal, and that is accessible by anything that understands SDI. And that's true for NDI. So if you're sending a 10-bit signal or an 8-bit signal, anyone can receive that in 8 bits. Now, our devices understand those extra 2 bits, so if it sees that on the network, then we'll take those extra 2 bits and make that into a 10-bit signal. So it's completely transparent. If you're working on any other device that is 8-bit only, which is most of the NDI sources out there, they'll work just as per normal. You won't notice any difference. But when you're working with one of our decoders, it will then take that 10-bit and use that to then output back as 10-bit as well.
Judson, hey Judson, nice, thanks for joining. Is there a way to swap up and down controls in PTZ? The reason is he's coming from a flight simulation where you pull back to go up.
Yeah, there is. That's an interesting one. I think from memory, it's only in the on-screen display, but there is under the PTZ menu. There's a flip button there, which is not an image flip, but it's a control flip. So yes, you can.
Yeah, cool. Our man Juan Ocampo. G'day, Juan. Thanks for joining us, mate. Will there be an option in cam controls to move window sections up and down? So, for example, you want camera up the top and then colour second. And
Yeah, look, I think that probably falls into the same basket as freezing panels as well. So so at the moment the interface is drawn per camera, and you can scroll around. But again, that's a great bit of feedback. So we'll definitely take that on board.
Yeah. Stay tuned, I think, was the answer for that one. Are there plans to integrate auto tracking features with the PTZ cameras? That's probably goes under future products that we don't talk about. How can you set what the home position is from Gary?
Yeah, cool. So that's again happy to help out if there's any issues with that. But basically, with the cameras, you have the ability within the system menu to tell it to restore preset 1 when it turns on. So you go in there and you can choose to restore preset 1, and that can become the home. So by default, home is front and center. But if you say restore preset 1, then when the camera turns on, it's going to go to whatever preset 1 is.
So Judson's asking a good question. Can you use cam control on Windows running Parallels?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the answer for Mac then.
I'm not sure that's an answer for Mac. But
it's good. So Anthony asks how many cameras can be displayed in cam control. It's 3 at a time, but it can support as many cameras as you have. So you just need to collapse one and open up a new one.
I think while Eamon's looking for that, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining this webinar as well. We are going to be doing more of these. We're in the process of getting this area set up so that we can do more of them. We'll try and have them tuned in for various time zones. This one, without complaining, was Eamon's idea to do one at 4 a.m, but we'll likely do a bit of a ping pong where we'll do some that match up with US time and some that match up with European time. But this is absolutely the most attended webinar we've had. I think we actually came very close to reaching the maximum that Zoom can actually support, which is a good point that we need to start looking at doing a live stream from this rather than just being a Zoom meeting. So we'll watch this space. But absolutely thank you for everyone that's either interested in our products, are one of our product owners, or whatever your disposition might be. But we love the fact that you want to listen to what we've got to say.
Yeah. Oh, so someone's asked about enhancements, improvements to one push white balance, one push white balance. Sorry.
Yeah, so the one push white balance is actually a function of the camera head itself. So that's actually a baseline. There's a lot of things that go on within the image processing that we do. So without sort of getting a whiteboard out and drawing it all, things like one push white balance is something that's deep down in the actual sensor itself. So that function is what it is. We have got better controls with that, so you'll find that they do react better with this new settings sync. So it does perform more predictably, I suppose, but there's no improvements to the end result.
Yeah. Shout out to Robert Bullington for that question as well. G'day, Robert. It's an interesting one. Can you save color presets and share them to a different device, like a Lightroom preset from Darren Casa?
No. So essentially what we're doing, this is not a lookup table. So there's within a post-production environment, what you would normally have is a camera shooting raw, and you put a LUT onto that camera to turn that into a log to linear type workflow. You can use lookup tables for all sorts of things, but that's kind of a traditional use. What this is doing is actually doing camera head adjustments. So it's kind of a different part of that image pipeline that we're working on. So it wouldn't, as much as we are making a file format that you can share your settings to apply to other cameras, it doesn't really make sense to be able to share that with post-production software, because it's really adjusting the camera head, not the video signal.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There's been a few questions, and I think we can sort of address these all in one, about like camera tracing movements, slower movements for changing between presets.
Yep. So the big one is, and again, we probably should talk to our marketing guy about this, but the P400 and P4K have tracing in them. It's probably one of our best kept secrets. So within those cameras, you can record a trace and you can use them. So on our 4K cameras, it is built into the actual camera, and you can use that straight away. I know there is actually third-party controllers, and a shout out to the Scarhoy guys. They do some amazing products, and they have tracing abilities. It's only going to perform better than ever with this new camera control engine that we have. So the reaction, the communication speed, everything that's happening is just a whole lot faster. Our PTZ controller is about recalling presets. You can adjust the speed that it recalls those presets, but it doesn't have a tracing function built into that. So essentially, you've got a few different options. If you have one of our 4K cameras, the tracing is built into the camera itself, and that's already a feature that's there. If you have one of the other cameras, you can use third-party tracing.
Vida has asked, actually, just on that topic, are we working with any third-party controller companies to integrate detailed shading possibilities? And he shouted out Scarhoy and CyanView. We've actually been talking with CyanView, and we've got one of their controllers here in our office. So expect some things coming there. And Vida, you were the one who introduced us to CyanView in the first place, so thank you for that. And Scarhoy, there'll be some stuff coming there as well, I'm sure. So.
Again, on the kind of thanking everyone, hopefully what you can see here is we are really open to discussing how we work with our products and everything, and that should come through on our user group and everything as well. We do value everyone's feedback. If there's things you want things to work with, or if there's questions you got about our products, we absolutely care, and we care about every single person, whether you've got one of our products or 100 of them. So we do love having this kind of feedback and things. So it's great.
Yeah, Todd has asked about changing presets in Cam Control. Todd, please give Cam Control 2.0 a go. I think it'll fix that problem. It's just outlined here in the question of recalling presets. So it's kind of been built from the ground up, so it's a whole new version, really.
I can see on there any snips about NDI5. Probably want to have a chat to New Tech about that. I think the only thing I can say is that all of our products have always supported whatever the latest version of NDI is, and we're pretty proud to be the first kind of products that come out with the latest version of NDI. So I think owing to what's happened over the last year in the world, the success of what's happened with NDI, owing to that, which is kind of a blessing in disguise for what's happened to the world. You can be sure that New Tech are working on new things. That's not really up to us to talk about, other than that if there is any new features, we'll be onto it as soon as they're available.
Yeah, so I'm not going to try and pronounce this. I think it's Tua has asked about changes to the white balance in Kelvin. Change the ISO instead of gain and dial in a custom shutter speed.
We've covered over the Kelvin thing. So the P100 has Kelvin, so you can do that on there. On the P200, we don't have that. As far as gain, it's still gain control, but custom shutter speed, there is some things happening with that. So we actually are working on quite a few different things with that. If you've got a specific requirement for custom shutter speeds, get in contact with us. There's kind of two parts to our products, really. We have the products that we ship, but then there is some industrial uses where we do have some different purposes where people have some really specific stuff. We can unlock some extra features with that, and so that custom shutter speed probably falls into that bucket. So if you have a specific need, let us know.
Alex Litwack, g'day Alex. He's asked, are the P400 servos smoother than the P200?
The P400 servos are very similar to the P200. What you'll see is all of that range, all of our products actually will behave smoother with the latest update. But I think from a camera and from a production point of view, the P200 and P400 really are amazing as far as their smoothness and the ability to control things compared to anything else. And the fact that we can do pan and tilt simultaneously, and it's got a really nice sort of natural ease in and ease out. They're a great camera from that perspective. Now, going up to the P4K, it is next level again, but certainly for the product, I think the controls are really great on those, and they're very much a similar product, the P400 and P200.
Yeah. Michael in Canada. Michael's in Canada, right? Michael in Julie? Yeah. He's asked about if you're only using one P200, is there a way to minimise the window just so you can only see one? Rather than taking up the whole screen in Cam Control, or do we need to use the web UI? I think for that now you would need to use the web UI, and then in the future maybe there'll be some
some cool things coming. Yeah.
So for now, Michael, just use the web UI. I think on that one. How many laptops can you have running Cam Control on the network?
How many network ports have you got on your network? I think is the answer. Essentially, the way Cam Control works is it's communicating, and this comes back to really the core of what we did with this firmware update. Is that we have this new control engine which keeps everything in sync, this settings sync, and that's really the key to the success of scaling these things out. And so basically, with Cam Control, you can have it running on multiple machines at once, and they'll all remain in sync. And so that can work really well if you've got a broadcast environment where there's multiple studios, or maybe even a education facility where you've got multiple lecture rooms and things, where you can have local Cam Control, but then you might want to have a central room that can do kind of an override if they need to do some adjustments.
Yeah. Drew's asked a question about cameras. We, as a company, we've stopped talking about future products, so we don't really want to give anything away on what we're working on, because it just creates lot of pressure on the company internally to get things, shipping, and we're learning along the way that we just end up sort of disappointing people if we announce things too early. So any questions about future products, we won't really answer those or address them too much. Ben asks, is there any ways to get RAW out of the cameras?
No, these aren't sort of designed for that cinematic type work. They're going to output a regular video color space.
Here's a good question from Kevin M. Do these exposure and color updates affect both NDI and SDI output, or only NDI?
No, absolutely. So this is, and it's probably something that's really important to note, and it's a great question. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
These are all done in hardware. They're upstream of any processing that happens for sending video out in any interface. So they're reflected over SDI, HDMI, NDI, and even on the P400, it's even reflected on the USB output as well. So it's everywhere. So
shout out to Anthony at Stream 4S. There's a whole bunch of questions in there. I'll get to one in a second. But Anthony, I've got your sticker on my laptop. So anyone who wants me to put a sticker on my laptop, just send them to me. I'll put them on my laptop. Chris Noakes has asked about updates for the 4K encode decode. At the moment, Chris, I assume you're talking about the 4K quad.
Yeah, or 4K converters in general.
Yeah. So they're all bi-directional now.
Yeah, so there's updates that are coming pretty thick and fast. We actually have, for anyone that's interested, we've talked about our user group on Facebook. There is actually also a beta user group as well. So that's where there's early access to some more features. So things like products like the 4K encoder decoders, we're always working on things. So I'm not sure what that specific question was looking for, but there's a chance that there might be a beta update that addresses what you're asking. So,
yeah. So maybe just send us an email on that, Chris. Can the P400 also put on, off, or sleep/blackout with cam control when camera is not on use? This is from Patrick.
Yep. So the camera can do it. Absolutely. You put the camera to sleep. You can blank the screen. That functionality is not in cam control. Cam control is more about your adjustment of your image properties and things, and then being able to use it in a production environment for fine tuning your camera. But the camera itself does absolutely have the ability to sleep and also to blank screens.
Yeah. There's a question from Ben Bentley about some networking. I'll let you read that one. G'day, Ben. Thanks for the question.
So basically that one's probably more an architectural thing. So NDI the question is, can you have, if you've got multiple network adapters, can you specify which network adapter? It's basically, that's probably a bigger NDI question. So anywhere that you can receive NDI, cam control will work. So if you've got your networking infrastructure set up where you've got multiple network adapters with different paths, you do need to make sure that routing works so that the receiver can actually receive the NDI stream. We don't do anything particularly special with that. So essentially, if you can access NDI on your studio monitor, you can access it within cam control as well.
Great. Sean Evans, where can I find steps for making sure baseband is ready and update process for the P400 firmware? Hey Sean, by the way, I think we spoke a couple of years ago. You were one of our very early customers, I think. So yeah, thanks for joining in. I'll throw the question to you. Yeah,
so basically, as I mentioned earlier, the documentation's all ready to go. So we have not only the firmware updates that'll be available on Monday, but also the full documentation of how to do it. It's a two-step process. So you need to update the baseboard, and there's a way to confirm that when the camera boots up to make sure you're running the newer version of the baseboard. And then there's the regular firmware update, which is accessible through the web user interface. So it's a two-step process, but it's well documented, and it takes maybe 4 minutes to do. So it's a pretty quick process.
Yeah. And we're here for you if you need our help. So just, reach out. Timothy Teo has asked, any news for the converters, 4K family and flex out?
Yes, but not today.
Yeah. No, so the 4K family is, they're all shipping, and they're basically feature complete now for the single channel units, and we're not far off feature complete for the quad, right? So they've come a long way. Flex out, we're on track to have them in customers' hands before Christmas, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're pushing hard to get those out the door and into customers' hands around the world before Christmas. Someone has asked, when we're talking about latency being reduced, what we're talking about.
Yeah, so basically within our processing engine, there's some things that we can control, and then there's some things that NDI as a format controls. So we've talked about before, our processing engine is really unique in the way that we're actually producing NDI, and it's been developed by BirdDog in-house. And it means that as we're getting video in from the camera head, we're processing that in 16 lines. So basically what we're doing is a video at HD has got 1080 lines. So 16 of those lines, so we're talking literally nanoseconds, we're able to encode that into NDI. Now, NDI itself at this point is it's called a slice-based method. So basically what we need to do is get to the end of the frame to send a frame of NDI. And basically you need to have a whole frame ready to send it over NDI. Now, all other devices work on a frame-based encoding. So what happens is that you get the whole frame of video in, then you've got to process it, and then you've got to send it over the network. What we do is, as soon as the frame's finished, we're ready to send that over the network. And that process is actually faster. So the net result is, well, it might seem small for some, it's actually quite big for others. It's about a frame of latency is improved again, which means things like the P100, which is already a really low latency camera, is getting super low latency now. So there is some things that we are out of our control, like to adhere to the NDI standard, we need to wait till the end of the frame to send it. We can't send it while the frame's being received, but as soon as that frame's ready, we're sending it out.
Yeah. Brett Beenan, g'day Brett, how are you?
Hey Brett.
He said, I have found some of the settings do not hold if there is a reboot or even between position presets, which is a holdover from the security camera days. Does Snapshot fix this?
So there's a couple of things there. So the preset thing, there's actually a setting within the cameras where you can turn off preset memory. So what that means is a lot of cameras don't store the image properties. They only store the pan, tilt, and zoom properties when you save a preset. So when you recall that, it's just going to recall the position and not adjust the image. With the BirdDog cameras, by default, they have preset memory turned on, which means that all of the image properties also get stored. So when you recall that preset, the image properties are going to change as well as the movement, and that can get a bit confusing, especially when you overlay this, multiple different places to control the camera. The short answer is yes, that all gets fixed in the fact that setting sync means that everything is in sync. And so when you, whenever you change a setting, if you save that preset or if you move it around, that setting is going to be active everywhere. There's no fights between different control mechanisms and things. So all of that goes away.
Yeah. Jonathan Dutton, g'day Jonathan, thanks for joining us. He's asked, what's the best way to make feature requests, email address, web form? To be honest, Jonathan, if you're in our Facebook user group and you post a thing in there, our all-seeing eyes will probably catch it. And we do listen to our users a lot, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who confirm that. So yeah, maybe just in the Facebook user group, it's fine.
I'm just seeing if there's any light outside while Eamon's. It's almost light.
I don't know what to do now. Do we stay up all day or do we try and get some more sleep? I just don't know. Did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so there's a question here about Genlock and NDI. So basically, there's Genlock is a form of sync, and Genlock is an analog sync, so it doesn't really flow through to any type of networking. So if you've got a camera that's got a Genlock input, like our P4Ks or P400s, they'll take that Genlock and they will lock to it. What that means is the NDI output will subsequently be timed with that Genlock as well, because the processing happens predictably and will happen all at the same time. I think probably the bigger question is there a network timing protocol? And NDI at this point doesn't support any type of NDI timing. Basically, it moves as fast as possible. So you'll find there shouldn't be any drift between those, especially if you're running with hardware devices. So there isn't a Genlock equivalent within NDI at this point. That's, again, probably one to throw back to new tech on that one, if they do anything in the future. But it's not something that we have in any NDI product, nor anyone else.
So I'm not sure if we caught this in time for VDAR, because he said cheers and bye, but he just posted he's getting another 30 cameras next week. So he already got 30 cameras like 2 weeks ago that I posted in the user group. So thanks, VDAR. That's kind of cool. This one, do you want to have a read? It's quite a long one. So.
Yeah, cool. So the question is really about there's two things. Well, it's actually one. It's about powering the cameras. So is there a standby mode? This is actually important for a couple of different places. If you're working in any type of corporate environment, you may not necessarily want the cameras running all the time for privacy reasons, but also just in this case for power reasons as well. If you've got the camera running all the time, it's burning power when you're not using it. So the cameras themselves do actually have a standby mode. So you can access that either via the PTZ Keyboard, which we sell. The question specifically was whether you can access that with Scarhoy. There is a command that can be done. I'm not sure whether the Scarhoy has the ability to map commands, but it can certainly be accessed via, technically it can be accessed via that.
Yeah, Judson has asked which camera would best match a Sony A series. So I think probably the P200 now, right? With the tools, you've probably got more chance of dialing it in.
Yeah. I think there's the Sony A series is a completely different beast to these cameras, but with that color matrix, you should be able to get that pretty certainly much closer than is possible in the past.
Yeah, and then if you need 4K, go to the P400 or the P4K. So yeah. Can we support Shuttle Pro in Cam Control? There's a USB jog wheel.
Okay. No, not at the moment. We don't have external control with that.
Yeah. Okay. Someone's asked, is there a proper, Joseph Walker has asked, is there a proper power down procedure?
No, so basically the products are designed to work like anything else. So basically if you pull the power, it'll turn back on to where it was. That's even more so the case with this new settings sync. So anything exactly where the camera status is, it'll come back to where that is. Can you update the firmware directly if it's got access to the internet? The answer is you don't need access to the internet to update the cameras. The cameras don't update directly from the internet. So effectively, you need to go into the web user interface and update them at this stage. That is a bit of feedback that we've had that it'd be nice to have an opt-in kind of idea for updating to the latest firmware. So that's something we've taken on board. This particular update is absolutely one that you need to manually choose to do it.
Yeah. Todd's asked, what's the latest on Flex Out? So I just mentioned it before, but they'll be in customers' hands this side of Christmas, Todd. So, yep.
The answer is yes. So the question is, can we push NDI audio out the audio ports located on the back of the P200? So the P200, another little sleeper feature with that is it actually works with our comms platform, and that's Comms Lite or Comms Pro. And so what we can do is send an NDI audio feed back to the camera, and then you can take the audio output from that camera and put it into either a headset or a speaker. So in some ways, you could actually use that camera as an IFB, so you can talk to talent directly from there.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much most things. If we didn't get to your question, we're sorry, but you can email us anytime. We try our best to answer everything. You can post it in the user group. I haven't been in there as often as I normally am because we've been a little bit busy. So hopefully I can get in there again.
Yeah, but as always, we do value any feedback, any questions. We've got plenty of different ways to contact us. There's, as Amos said, there's the user group. We've got our help line, so you can either raise a ticket or send an email to that. And there's also hello@BirdDog. So there's plenty of places to get in contact with us. We always want to talk with you, whether that's for something new you're working on or whether you want something ironed out. We're happy to help out. Yeah. So all I can say is thank you. I know some people have been on here for an hour and a half. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've given you some good news today. We're really proud of what the team's been able to achieve with this update and the fact that we can do that with products that are already out there. So we're not trying to bring in new features that require a new version of a product. You can update your existing stuff. So I think that's a great update from our point of view.
Yeah, I think we can leave it at that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, roll the video again and then we'll leave it there. This video will be available in probably a couple of hours' time, certainly by the end of the day here in Australia, and that'll be available on YouTube. We'll share it on social. So
the sizzle wheel will be up in about half an hour, but the full video maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, everyone, and appreciate it.
Bye-bye.